Imagine if you could easily find solutions to make your region or city smarter, greener, better connected, more social, and closer to citizens. The Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform can help you access knowledge about the latest policy trends, discover expert-validated good practices from all over Europe, find solutions in our peer review, get tailored support from our expert team. We can connect you with the right people and organizations. Together, we will find ways to solve your region's or city's challenges. Start your policy learning journey today.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just getting the screen up. So my name is Marc Pattinson, and I'm one of the experts on the policy learning platform, the Interreg Europe project. You've just had some insights with this lovely video that gives you a good summary. And this afternoon, with my colleague Laura Varisco, we're going to take you on a journey around Europe, but also a journey into the theme of pre-commercial public procurement. Hopefully, it's a subject you know something about, and if it's not, you certainly will know a lot more by the end of this 1.5-hour session. So, as I said, today you're hosted by two experts from the Policy Learning Platform team, myself, Mark, my colleague Laura, and to help with any technical any issues you may have in connections or speaking using the chat, our colleague Lotta is also with you. We're both part of the, well, all three of us are part of the Policy Learning Platform team, and Laura and I are particularly involved in the projects that come under the SMART banner for the projects that have been funded by the Interreg Europe program. So I will give you a quick update on the agenda. We have three excellent speakers, and each one will hopefully add to your knowledge on the policy, pre-commercial procurement policy. And we'll start with Lieve, who's a policy officer at the DG CNECT. So give us some insights into the way the PCP tool is being used by the Commission and some of its impacts on helping policymakers and technical organizations and companies using this tool. We'll then have an in-depth look at how an Interreg Europe project, appropriately called iBuy, and Justė will take us from her insights from the Lithuanian Innovation Center as the project manager, looking at how the pre-commercial public procurement support scheme was delivered in their project. And last but not least, our last speaker, Beatrice Gomez. She's a legal procurement consultant from Corvus and based in the Netherlands. And she will give her perspective on how the PCP tool can be used to meet a variety of needs and also alert you to some of the challenges that perhaps lie around the corner. But before I ask Lieve to start the speaking, I'll just give you some insights into the policy learning platform services. Today, you're in a webinar that will last 1.5 hours. You can ask questions using the chat. You have the full panel of let's say, tools to interact with the speakers and the organise. So don't hesitate to put your questions and any documents you may think would be relevant to other members of the audience today using the chat. But Policy Learning Platform supports the Interreg Europe program and the projects that have been funded. And as you can see in the previous round, we've got extremely good coverage, 29 countries, and the budget covers almost 380 million. And you can see that the different themes that are, let's say, working to stimulate you, the smart, the green, the connected, the governance, etc. As we know, the focus on Interreg Europe is to support the overall EC's Commission policies on cohesion, so regional development. And at the Policy Learning Platform, we're very much focused on supporting the exchange of information, explaining new concepts, but also capitalizing on the different projects that have been funded by Interreg Europe. So identification of good practices, transferring them, and generally supporting capacity building with the community, both policymakers and also some of the operators that work alongside the policymakers. We're in the second round of calls for this part of the 21-27 program. So the first call closed last year, 72 projects were funded. And for those who can write very quickly, the deadline for the second call is this Friday, the 9th of June. You'll see that the policy learning platform links that we provide give you insights not only to the current projects, but also some of the closed projects, because we believe in capitalizing on those as well. The definition of our activities and the policy learning platform can be summarized by these three words: knowledge, people, and expert support. And each of them gives you a different path to services and a very sort of on-demand action that can be responding to your particular needs and not the platform needs. We very much try and design and deliver services that meet your needs. So knowledge, we have the database of good practices that's accessible online, and then more in-depth knowledge sharing through policy briefs and other types of publications. This is the knowledge part. People, the network through the meetings or through the some 25,000 registered practitioners on the website. You get access to them through the projects, through the events, but it's a big cross-section, as you can imagine, covering the 29 countries that I mentioned previously. Last but not least, one of the, let's say, gold label services that we like to always talk about is called the peer review. In a nutshell, it's you're in a region, you have a particularly policy challenge, and you can complete a 2 or 3 page application form in which you say, I would like some expert advice from other policymakers, perhaps challenged or tried to respond to the similar challenge in their own country. And the policy learning platform will work with you to identify the peers, prepare the agenda with you, help you prepare your briefing document, and then bring these peers into your region. And as you can see, Europe has already picked up on this service, and a number have been delivered, over 50 to date. We've got another 4 for the autumn. So follow the link and you can get access to a very simplified application form. And to date, I don't think we've had any losers, only winners. So it's always good to participate in this process. And if you're not sure you want to launch a peer review in full, try a 1.5 hour online matchmaking session. Some of you who joined us in Ghent last week did some face-to-face matchmaking, and that can be the first step in maybe identifying partners for projects, partners for future Interreg Europe, or simply partners to help you deliver a policy more effectively, more efficiently. And the links at the bottom of our slides give you access to the WID platform. Okay, so today we're going to hear from the iBuy project. There are other projects that you can learn from the good practices at the good practice database. As I mentioned, we produce policy briefs, and we've done one on innovation procurement, so the link here. You will have these slides afterwards. I should have said that at the beginning. Our policy briefs tend to be 25-page long documents, and you can access them on the online platform. And the bottom line, the peer review, as I mentioned, you can launch your search for a peer review. Maybe you can learn from what some others have been doing, and also prepare an application form with us to launch your own peer review request. Last slide for me really is just to sort of share some of the sort of taxonomy, the definitions when we think of the PCP, the pre-commercial procurement, and its role in helping the public sector. In this case, it could be the private sector as well, but in our case, focusing on the public sector, that enables a procurement organization to access early stage knowledge and expertise services from a pool of SMEs that can be advanced in parallel. You're basically funding the research and innovation, the last steps before the service or the product becomes live and can go to the market. So it's a different way of simply going to the market and buying a solution off the shelf. This enables you to work with several SMEs, for example, and enable them to understand better your needs. Procurement services can then be shaped, and at the end of the process, you can select one that becomes the preferred bidder and preferred supplier. And the last point, we talked about the European Commission using PCP for procurement. I won't say anything more because Lieve Boss will tell us more and better than I will. So we shall now move on to the presentations, and this is where I will stop my slide and be happy to hand over to Lieve Boss from DG Connect. So Lieve, if you wouldn't mind sharing your slides, and the floor is yours.
I hope you can all hear me.
I can, thank you.
Hold on, I was trying to put my slides in full screen view. I'm trying to get rid of this box here at the top. This is not working now. Well, I hope you can see the slides. We'll probably move once we start speaking. So pre-commercial procurement, what is it? It's a procurement of public procurement of research and development services. And why are we doing that? Well, in the past, we've supported for the largest extent the supply side, the companies, the researchers, told them be innovative, develop new products, but those also need to be deployed in the end, and suppliers cannot really create useful products without feedback from customers. So what does pre-commercial procurement do? It changes the roles. It puts at the forefront, at the leading angle of the project, the customers, the public buyers, who come with their procurement needs and ask the market, companies, researchers to develop solutions for that, so that they immediately meet the customer needs. It can cover all possible R&D stages, but typically it goes through something like designing a solution, coming with a feasibility study, pricing estimation, and so on. Then developing a prototype, ultimately developing the real solution and testing it, and possibly a purchase of these tested solutions. The characteristic of it is that it's not happening just with one supplier, but it gives several potential suppliers or consortia of suppliers the chance to show what they are able to develop to the customer. So they are actually developing in competition, and at every milestone, the customer compares which solutions are still meeting its needs. It can stop with those who don't meet the requirements anymore and only continue the next phase with those who still do. Unique is also that the suppliers keep their intellectual property rights, so they can commercialize their solutions to other customers also afterwards. But the customer, the public sector, also keep rights to use the solutions, to give licenses. And if the solutions are never commercialized by the suppliers, in the very worst case, even to call back the IPR so that we can have it commercialized also by others. So it's actually an R&D phase before commercialization, before wide-scale commercialization, which is why it's called pre-commercial procurement. And because of that, it also falls outside of the international procurement rules, which means that we can use this type of projects to require development to be done in in Europe, and to also require, for example, later commercialization to be done for a large extent in Europe. So we can link these kind of requirements to the procurement. That's different for procurements of innovative solutions that really deploy solutions on wide scale. There they do fall international procurement rules, and there these kind of localization requirements are not possible. The same also for procurements that would combine research and development and the deployment of commercial volumes of solutions into one procurement. There also this isn't possible. There are several EU programs which support innovation procurements from the EU side. Maybe the most well-known one is Horizon Europe, the Research and Innovation Program, which supports both pre-commercial procurements and procurements of innovative solutions. But more recently, there is also the national recovery plans. Every country can use budgets from its national recovery plans to procure solutions or to procure research and development. So there are several countries also using that for innovation procurement. The new defense program is planning to support pre-commercial procurements. In the green area, in the innovation funds and the climate change funds, there are also opportunities for green procurement, and those also deploy typically innovative solutions. The regional development programs, for sure you are familiar with those. You can also support innovation procurements with these structural funds or regional development funds. And then there are also, for example, the digital programs, the Connect Europe facility that supports deployments, and the Digital Europe program as well. In Horizon Europe in particular, there are still several calls open for innovation procurements, as you can see here. I would draw your attention to the ones in the domains of security and climate change adaptation and mitigation. I'm sure they are relevant also for you and could provide interesting opportunities to get solutions developed, tested, and even deployed in a small scale. But there are also other actions, as you can see, surrounding actions that can support innovation procurement. In the Digital Europe program, that's a deployment program for digital solutions, there are also lots of procurements who could use innovative solutions, who could benefit from that. So for the suppliers there, it can be also interesting, suppliers from your regions, to look out for those procurements on the TED portal to see if there is anything that they could contribute there with their innovative solutions. Something rather new also in the Digital Europe program is the European Digital Innovation Hubs. These are mostly regional hubs. Some are national, but most of them are regional across all the European countries that make the link between all the regional players, not only the supply side, but also the demand side. And they try to foster the digital transformation of both of them. So, and we've seen that there are already a number of hubs, 3/4 of the hubs actually want to be active on digital transformation of the public sector and accelerate the adoption of innovative solutions in the public sector. So again, lots of activities for innovation procurement at the regional level. What could a hub do in the context of innovation procurement? It is typically a group of people who knows the advanced digital solutions very well, and they can act with their hub, with their infrastructure as a test bed for innovative solutions. So public sector organizations who cannot test complicated digital solutions themselves could go there and use that test bed in their procurements. The hubs could also promote open market consultations and calls for tenders to innovative companies or researchers in the region. They could inform them also about EU funding for innovation procurement. But they can also take a more active role and assist public and private sector organizations on innovation procurement. Some of the hubs are planning to do that. Some of the hubs are even planning to act as a procurer themselves when they are a central purchasing body that can plan and implement innovation procurements themselves for public sector organizations in their area. So what can you do with pre-commercial procurements? What does it achieve when you trigger the supply side to deliver solutions for your specific needs? Well, it can boost business opportunities for the supply side, of course, and we see that also in the projects that have taken place at the national and at the EU level, that they award more contracts to innovative companies, to smaller companies, and these companies, they make it easier for them to grow international, to create contracts with procurers in other countries. They can commercialize their solutions faster because they know better what the customer wants. It helps them to create partnerships with larger companies to enter the stock market, for example, find investors. But also for the procurers, there are clear benefits. It helps them to obtain more efficient and higher quality solutions, quality improvements, cost improvements, better services for citizens, more interoperable solutions using standards. Because in a procurement, you can set the requirements of, so if you demand that solutions have to be interoperable, you can make sure that they will be. And as we said, it's also a way to reinforce our strategic autonomy in Europe, because we can require that R&D and even some later commercialization must be done in Europe. So it's a way to stimulate made in Europe products, in fact. Some examples. Here you see a pre-commercial procurement, silver, and procurement that was funded by the European Commission many years ago already, with several cities and regions in it, developed robotic solutions, originally for the elderly care sector, to help elderly people with muscular problems be able to live independently for a longer time. But the solutions are now deployed not only in the elderly and healthcare sector, but also in the manufacturing business, because also there is heavy lifting to be done, and these robotic solutions can help. Some of the companies have commercialized their solutions even worldwide, selling them to very big organizations like NASA, Airbus, winning awards, going on the stock market, finding venture capital, and so on. Here another example, also in robotics, but it was a nationally funded pre-commercial procurement from Denmark. It was a group of regions, regional hospitals, in fact, from Denmark that came together and said, we need to find better solutions to disinfect hospitals. They launched this challenge. Companies were created, new startups even came with disinfection robots that are very effective. And during the Corona crisis, of course, they were very popular and were bought all around the world. And one of these startups grew very big. It's now a unicorn almost, that has really strengthened Europe's position in robotics in this field. And the EU dimension is here, that the European Commission helped to diffuse these robots once they were, once the pre-commercial procurement was finished and they were ready, by buying a large amount of them for hospitals around Europe. This is an example of artificial intelligence, also a project from quite some time ago already, when artificial intelligence was not breaking through widely yet, in fact. First, the project did a pre-commercial procurement, a group of procurers who were regional hospitals. And then afterwards, they did another procurement to deploy the solutions. They widened even their buyers group, because the solutions were needed all across Europe. So what did they develop? An interoperable platform for telemedicine, because the previous platforms were not interoperable. And that can use artificial intelligence to detect half a day in advance which patients in the hospital are going to get sick, are showing patterns in their temperature, in their medical parameters that show that they are going to get sick and they need urgent treatment. So it's predicting and helping them prevent patients from getting sicker than they already are when they enter the hospital, in fact. And they see really lower mortality, shorter hospital stays, improvements that really benefit the patients. Solutions are also globally sold now. Here is another example of artificial intelligence solutions in different sectors, in energy and mobility sector. Group of cities on the left came together to say, we need to speed up our transition to climate neutrality. They launched one challenge in energy, one challenge in mobility, and asked which artificial intelligence solutions can help us consume less energy and organize a mobility in the cities in a better way, so that also we emit less carbon. Very interesting solutions. Lots of them applied, almost 100 companies applied. Lots of them participated also. And finally, 7 very successful solutions are being prepared now for deployment, in fact. The one on the right is about autonomous driving, but not just for personal passenger cars, but for bus lines, autonomous bus lines, which is a whole challenge on itself. Again, a group of cities with a number of supplier consortia. The procurement is also finished and deployments are being prepared now. Interesting links for you to also have a look at is our European Assistance for Innovation Procurement, but I'm sure you'll hear about it later in another presentation. If you're interested to look more at showcase examples, there are links, the catalog of all the European digital innovation hubs in case you want to connect to one of them. There is also a network of national competence centers for innovation procurements, and interestingly, we also did a few years ago a benchmarking of where are different countries in developing their policy measures to support innovation procurement and where are they on making investments in innovation procurement. So you can check there in this study where your country is compared to other countries and what could be improved. We're currently doing the benchmarking again to see now how is the situation, how it has evolved over the past years. Here's some more information, links where you can find additional information, and don't feel shy to get in contact in case you have further questions. Thanks a lot.
Thanks very much, Lieve. It's very, we've covered an awful amount of topics in such a short time. I've got 1 or 2 questions, and I also saw there was a question in the chat, which you probably couldn't see while you were going through your slides. It's from Melissa Campagno, who says, very interesting presentation, and she's trying to get an insight into how procurers work together internally to define the needs, the functional requirements of a PCP. Is there any light you can shed on that particular issue that she's asked you about?
Yeah, it's maybe 2 questions in one. How do they work together, and how do they work together on functional specifications? How do they work together in the PCPs? When we fund them at European level, we fund joint procurements. So it's a group of buyers that comes together that wants to solve the same challenge. So they define the needs together. And then one of them, which we call the lead procurer, who represents the whole buyers group, goes out and publishes the procurement in the name and on behalf of the whole group. And then, of course, they follow up the procurement all together, select the suppliers together, do testing in the different countries, share their experience in the end. And when it's finished, yeah, they can learn from all these lessons and decide how to organize any follow-up procurements. That's how they work together. And we have template tender documents for that, guidance documents for that, in case you're interested. You find them somewhere when you click on these links on the last slide. Now, how do they find functional specifications? That's very important, because if the procurers already define which solution exactly they want to have, then the suppliers have almost no more room left to come with something innovative. So they define indeed functional specifications. They define what are the new functionalities that they want to have, or what are the performance improvements that they want to have. Today, existing solutions cannot do this. The future solutions, they would like to be able to do this and this and that at a lower cost, faster rate, or more efficient way. So they define what is exactly that bothers them today, what do they want to improve in terms of functionalities and performances. And sometimes they also define use case scenarios to make it more concrete for the suppliers, what do they mean by these functionalities in concrete cases where the solutions should be able to work. For example, for the bus procurement, they said it should not only work on sunny days, but also on rainy days, also on cloudy days, not only in environments where there is nobody on the street, of course, but also in environments where there are 2 bus lines in the same street or passengers crossing or this or that. So they illustrate their requirements also sometimes with use cases, which will then also serve later as the test case scenarios.
Okay, thank you. Hope, Melissa, that answered partially or all of your question. I think what you also showed is the importance of cities or regions working together. I think both to get the critical mass, and I suppose it avoids people asking the same question, but equally makes a bigger market for the SME rather than just selling to one region or one city. You create a bigger market. So how do SMEs tend to react to this, PCP process? When they see it, they think, oh, this is going to be taking us even longer and away from launching, or do they see it as a way of accelerating their services? Have you got any sort of impact feedback from SMEs?
Well, it depends, of course, a lot on the procurement. There are procurements who organize and on the field in which they are working. There are procurements that focus on topics that are very complex, on products that are very complex. Like we've had pre-commercial procurements about supercomputers, which are not easy products to make, so they take a bit longer. There have been other pre-commercial procurements that focused on apps, software apps, which are a whole degree easier to produce and you can do faster. So it really depends a lot. The success of the project depends a lot on designing it well before you start. Don't make it too long, don't make it too short, don't make the budgets or the requirements impossible for the vendors to implement. So that's why the step before procuring the open market consultation is so important, where there is a dialogue with industry. Sometimes we see projects procurers who really do this very well and discuss really almost everything with the companies, from commercialization up to the technical aspects, everything, and they get very good preparation. Others go through it a bit faster, and then maybe they don't catch all the feedback that they could. But in general, we see that there are much more SMEs and startups participating in pre-commercial procurements than in the regular type of procurements, let's say. 75% or something of these contracts are won by SMEs and mostly by small startups. And it helps them afterwards when we ask them, how did it help your company? They're positive that it helped them to commercialize solutions to other clients and so on. But I think there is still a learning curve for many procurers because it's still something new to do. So if you would like to start doing this something like this, and you are thinking about, should I participate in a European project or not? It's always good to work together with an experienced procurer who has done it before, so that you can learn from these lessons and don't have to make mistakes that others have done in the past, or can immediately do it better or more efficient.
Well, you provided the perfect link to the next presentation, Lieve, because working with procurers, working with people who've tried it before. So thanks for the first contribution, and you can hopefully stay with us until the end. When the end, we'll do a little group discussion between the 3 speakers. So thanks for the time being. And that enables me to present, move on to our next speaker, Justė from the Lithuanian Innovation Center, who will tell us a bit more about the practicalities and the experiences from an Interreg Europe funded project called, most appropriately, iBuy. Justė, if you want to share your presentation. And,
yes. Hello, Mark. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction.
Put it in full mode and that will be perfect.
So it's fine now. Let me introduce our Interreg Europe project, which was completed
It's still in presentation mode. You need full screen.
Okay. Because here's
always works in the practice run.
it's fine now.
Not yet. Share your screen as we. Yep.
Okay. So let me introduce our project. It was Interreg Europe project, which we completed in last year. So the project idea was to support the public authorities as demanders of innovation through public procurement. And we were a lead partner for this consortium. And we had consortium partners from Finland, Latvia, Romania, Greece, Spain, and Portugal. So this was quite a new topic, I would say, for all the regions and all the countries involved. And from one side, it was quite challenging also to find good practices and to share the experiences. But from the other side, it was really useful for our regions, as we were learning all together and learning about the pre-commercial procurement as well as public procurement of innovation related topics, and then try to improve the policies in our region. So one of the good practices which we presented to the policy learning platform and which we identified in Lithuania was the funding scheme of pre-commercial procurement. We launched the financial scheme for the financing period of 2014-2020. It was also, we can say, a pilot financial scheme, because it was the first time in Lithuania we had such a demand-side innovation instrument. So there were public funds available up to 85% of the total value of the project. And the public procurements, the pre-commercial procurements had to be in line with the smart specialization strategy of Lithuania. Projects could receive up to 2 million euros for one project. So it was individual projects where one procuring organization could implement a project, and it also had to follow the process, the scheme proposed by European Commission for the implementation. So as a colleague before mentioned, so what is the main idea of the pre-commercial procurement is to actually procure R&D services. So it means that we do not know the product at the moment which we need to procure. And for the development of that product, we need to procure R&D services from the companies, and to create a pilot, to create a prototype of the project. So this was also quite a challenge for some procuring organizations, because it was the first time when we tried to launch the pre-commercial procurements of public institutions, and this criteria sometimes was difficult to understand for the procuring organizations. So how the whole process looked like, we can say now it was not very easy process, because it was not only the process to conduct the pre-commercial procurement, but also to obtain the funding first. So the procuring organizations had to define their object, prepare the technical specifications. So the Agency of Science, Technology and Innovation in Lithuania was evaluating whether it meets the R&D criteria. R&D services are foreseen in this process. So then the procuring organization had to prepare the application for the managing authority, which was assessed by the business support agency, which was administrating the funding scheme. And then the agreement for the funding was done, and the procuring organization could start the actual procurement process. The scheme of the commercial procurement was the same which was proposed by European Commission and which the colleague before showed to you. So there were 3 phases in the whole process. First phase, when procuring organizations had to have 4 suppliers. Then in each phase, they were selecting the best suppliers which could move to the second phase. This was now from experience, I can say that also quite a challenge because most of the companies, most of the procuring organizations organized nationally the procurement process. So to find like 4 suppliers which could participate in the first phase was sometimes difficult when they were procuring the solutions which do not exist on the market, and without the sufficient number of the suppliers, they could not move on and they could not meet the requirements of the funding scheme. So other related challenges implementing this funding scheme was actually securing the 15% of the co-financing, because the projects were quite big. The funding amount was quite big, and then the amount of co-financing was also quite substantial for the public sector organizations. And also there was this lack of understanding what is the procurement, that it doesn't mean actual procurement of services, of goods and services. So when the prototype is developed and would like to be used for the broader scale, it means that organization should a new procurement process, because the PCP would end only with the development of the prototype. So in total, about less than 20 pre-commercial procurements were initiated, and they were quite different processes how it ended up. We had several very successful procurement cases. So I could also say that the ones which worked a lot with the market before the actual procurement were much more successful, because they managed to attract the participants, and then they also got a lot of knowledge what is available on the market and what requirements could be included in the technical specification. There are still some procurements ongoing, because it was quite a lengthy process. And yeah, there were some of them canceled, which I mentioned. One of them most often of the reason why it happened, it was not enough suppliers identified, or it was also sometimes that after first or the second phase, the developed product did not meet the needs or requirements of the procuring organization, and then they canceled the process also and didn't continue further. We also plan to have this kind of funding scheme, maybe with some adjustments during this financing period, because Lithuania has identified quite ambitious goals regarding the PPI in general. So we would like to achieve 20% of the PPI in the 2030. It is marked as a target in our national development program. And we in the iBuy project worked further how this policy framework could be improved. We analyzed this also benchmarking analysis, which Lieve mentioned before. What are the weak steps, so to sides of Lithuanian policy framework? So we prepared during the project 10 steps guide for the main stakeholders in Lithuania, mainly for the Ministry of Economy and Innovation, which is the responsible body for implementation of the public procurement of innovation. So these steps composed of different policy actions, like developing the actual action plan, improving measurement of it, and also developing other new financial incentives. I just could mention shortly that later on we had another more simple financial incentive for the GovTech projects implementation in the public sector, where the companies could get smaller amounts of funds for developing of prototypes, and it was more flexible scheme and much more easy application and contracting process. And there are also other measures we are still in the process of implementation. What is quite important, I think, the movement further is that from the 1st of January in 2023, there is a requirement that at least one person should be in the commission of the procurement, should be the procurement specialist, certified procurement specialist, and innovation public procurement is one of the topics which need to be learned to get this certification. The materials which we prepared during the project was also used as a learning material for supporting this initiative, and we have some video materials prepared that procuring organizations could learn what is a pre-commercial procurement, what is innovation public procurement, what are the differences between these types of procurements, and so on, how to initiate it and how to implement it. So we still, of course, need a lot of things to do. That PCP and innovation public procurement is more like known and used in Lithuania, but here were the first experiences from our side.
Well, it's a very interesting journey that iBuy took you on. I think quite impressive.
I think it was really great timing of the project, so it was really useful for the whole context, policy context.
And for one of our participants who wrote at the beginning, please give me a definition of PCP. Well, I think both in your presentation, the last slide, and Lieve's presentation, we had materials that you can all use. If you're following the discussion, the chat, you'll see our colleague Lotta's putting the links to all the presentations and materials that Justa's just presented. So don't hesitate to use that material to help yourself grow up that learning curve. I just had one comment and two questions. The comment is, I think we highlighted another project called TITTAN, which was looked at the health sector. And a question in terms of any of the inter-project work that you did with between other Interreg Europe, did you do any exchange with other Interreg Europe projects that had a procurement focus, even though maybe they were sector focused or not?
Well, with the TITTAN, we didn't have like many common activities, but we were also like exchanging experiences with a CIRPRO project, which is more public procurement for circular public procurement.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite useful also to see what other projects are doing.
No. Well, wouldn't be the policy learning platform that would disagree with that. So we've got one question in the chat. I'll come to that. I'll ask my one first. You highlighted, and Lieve mentioned it in her presentation as well, the procurement learning curve. And the question also from Laura Varisco is about how public procurers can reduce barriers to launching PCP. So on the one sense, we've got the training dimension, the question you mentioned, if you can share any tips. And then the second question is from in the chat, Laura, is about how the, let's say, steps that public procurement can take to reducing the barriers to entry. Have you got any thoughts on those 2 points?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think we organized already quite a lot of information events and experience sharing events, but it's still, I mean, it's still so in the infant, so to say, phase, you know, the term itself and the process, how to implement it. So the public procurement organizations need a lot more training, awareness raising. What is this type of procurement? What difference does it make? How does it differ from the usual procurement, or how innovative public procurement differs from the pre-commercial procurement? Is also, we realize that it's really difficult for the procuring organizations to understand these differences. Like, and of course, the pre-commercial procurement is much more, I would say, difficult scheme in itself, how it is structured, and requires really like experienced procurers from the legal perspective, and then as well from the technical perspective, the knowledge of the technology. So this communication with the market, I mean, it's one of the key aspects which we kind of know, but we still maybe don't use it enough, or we just don't use all the channels possible to reach out to the market, because like some procuring organizations still think that when you just put the notice of the market consultation in the e-procurement, you know, tool portal, it's already enough, but it's really not, because you need to use all the possible ways of communication to reach out the market.
And I think even in the culture of procurement, it's often it's almost a secret society. You know, we can't talk to anybody, we can't give anybody, you know, information that is not available to everyone. So the openness and the open market consultation process you highlighted is very important, and you have to have the knowledge to reach out to the community, otherwise you will be not getting the full market feedback. Okay, all right, well, thanks for those insights. Particularly interesting to see how these materials can then help you deliver, and we saw how at the national level the notion of innovative procurement is taking a larger share, or plan to take a larger share of the procurement budgets, which is a good trend. Okay, so if you will join us later in our little joint session, we'll move on to our last speaker. So thanks again, Justė. Beatrice, where are you? There you are. Beatrice Gomez from Corva's procurement company. So you know the rules now. If you can click and share your slide, that would be great. And put it in full screen for us.
It's taking a second, but can you see it now?
Yep. All good. I can now disappear. Floor is yours.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you very much for having me here today. Well, basically today with my presentation, I wanted to give a short vision of the benefits and challenges linked to pre-commercial procurement. And my idea for today was to give you a definition or general explanation of what is procurement, then move to the benefits that pre-commercial procurement can have for companies, including market opportunities, but also the public entities, of course. Then I will briefly address the challenges that pre-commercial procurement, that procurers usually face when conducting a pre-commercial procurement. And I would like to also give you an insight of a project in which we are participating as partners, that is the Protect project. Well, as you can see, my idea was to explain what is PCP and give you an explanation of the main features, but the two previous speakers explain it perfectly. So I would like you to remind that what we're talking about here is the purchase of research and development services. And the three main characteristics or features of the PCP is first this phase approach, a procedure composed of several phases, usually three. A first phase which entails the solution design, a second that consists of the development of a prototype that in some case can be also tested in the facilities of the public procurer, and a third phase in which we already have a prototype and we test that prototype in real conditions. There is always a sharing of the risks and benefits between the public buyers and the contractors. And a clear example is what Lieve mentioned before about the IPR distribution, the distribution of the intellectual property rights that are generated during the PCP. And there is also a clear separation between the procurement of research and development services, which is the objective of this approach, and the future deployment of commercial volumes of end products. So as it was mentioned before, if we want to buy a product, once we finish the research and development services, then we can start a new procurement, which will be a public procurement of innovative solutions. It will be a different procedure. Well, focusing now on the benefits that this approach has for companies and also for the public sector itself. And I will start with the benefit that this has for the procurers. And in order to understand these benefits, it's very important to have in mind what I just said, that we are in front of a unique and very flexible procedure that can be composed of several phases. Because this phase approach entails quite a lot of benefits for the public procurement. So, for example, the main benefit is that the public buyers are able to buy better solutions, but at the same time with a more affordable price, and also significantly improve the quality and efficiency of the public services. So if we think about this phase approach, in the first phase we have a minimum of 4 contractors, and then the number is reducing until the end of the procedure, but we have competition from the beginning until the end. Well, that's very beneficial because what this approach allows is that the contractors feel the pressure of saying, okay, I have another competitors, so I have to do my best to provide the best solution, to give you the best conditions in order that you select my solutions over others. And of course, at the same time, it also reduces the risk because as a public buyer, probably I don't want to put all my eggs in the same basket because we don't know if that solution is going to be successful or not. If we know that we have already another solutions being developed at the same time, we know that we have a safety net there. And if one is not working, we still have another's. Also, at the same time, we can, as the public buyer, can provide early customer feedback to the contractors and steer the development of the solutions in the way that it's more favorable to cover their needs. So perhaps we don't have in the market anything that is good to cover my needs, but with this I can steer and I can, let's say, point the direction in which I want that solution to go. And of course, also another benefit is that in this process, the public buyer learns a lot, learns about how it works, the market, which solutions are more, let's say, suitable for my needs, which are the limitations of the solutions. So if it decides to go for a upcoming public procurement of innovative solutions, to buy that solution, the public buyer already has a lot of knowledge about what is going on in the market, which is, as we know, usually one of the main weakness points of the authorities. From the other side, the side of the suppliers, well, of course, that was also mentioned in the previous presentation. It offers a lot of opportunities from a business perspective. It's also helped them to grow, to speed time to market for the innovation. And also, well, of course, attract investors and scale up internationally. And a very clear case, it was the case mentioned before about the UVT robots. That was a small startup when it participated in the PCP, and then it received investment and it grew, and now is one of the, let's say, let's call unicorns, no, at the European level. So it's a very successful company, but at the beginning was a startup that benefits from all these positive aspects of the PCP. And in this regard, I would like to share with you a new approach that we are exploring in a EU-funded project in the defense domain, in which we are trying to understand if and how the venture capital organizations can collaborate during the PCP, not after, but during the PCP. So here we have, of course, several actors. We have the contracting authorities, which, as I say, they want to ensure that the solution satisfies in full their needs. We have the contractors that, of course, they want to deliver a successful solution and then commercialize that solution. And, of course, they want to grow as a company. And then we have the venture capital organizations. And here we are talking about private venture capital, which are the most common, but we also have public venture capital organizations. And of course, they want to invest in a project that is viable, that it will give them profit. And of course, they always want to, if something goes wrong, have an easy way to exit from the project. So far, the discussions are very positive, and some of the key takeaways that we can share with you today is that, of course, the first step is that the contractor has a solid commercialization plan as a prerequisite. Also, that linked to the PCP, there is already a demand base that the venture capital can come to say, okay, we have a pool of customers that they can in the future buy the solution. Concerning the moment of the PCP in which venture capital can operate, well, it depends. When we are talking about private venture capitals, usually it's in phase 3 because we have already a more mature prototype of the solution. So we already have a clear idea if it will be successful or not. But for example, in the case of public venture capital organizations, sometimes they also think more about the strategic approach and then decide to invest first. For example, in the first or second stage of the procurement. And it's essential in this process the collaboration with the contracting authorities, of course, in order to promote the results and also to this, let's say, effect in which, okay, if I validate the solution as a contracting authority, I'm going to encourage another contracting authorities to be interested in the solution and potentially buy it. But also we have some challenge for public buyers when they want to implement this instrument, no? And this is also linked what we were discussing before about the barriers and about the potential difficulties that they face. I hear a lot about people that say, okay, PCP is very difficult, it's very bureaucratic, I'm afraid of starting a PCP because I think it's very complex. Well, that's true, it's complex in some way, but I think that the main reason also for this attitude is the lack of knowledge about PCP, and especially a lot of knowledge about the legal framework, no? As we know, Lieve said before, this approach is accepted from the European directives and therefore gives you more flexibility to configure the procurement in a way that suits you better, let's say. So instead of being more bureaucratic, like generally some people think, it's more flexible. Of course, it doesn't mean that it's not complex. The issue that usually the public buyers have is the insufficient resources. Human, technical, economic. So, of course, given the objective and the approach that we are following, it's essential that we have within the organization different people working on the project, not only from the procurement department, but also from the legal department and especially from the technical department. And it should be a clear and easy communication between them in order to ensure that the project will be successful. So basically, essential to have a team, a multidisciplinary team working together and committed to the project. We have also the problem of the reluctance of taking risks, because yeah, that's true. This is a process that can be complex. It's a process that requires time, requires money, and well, we don't know which will be the outcome. It could be positive, we expect to be positive, but well, it's never guaranteed that it will be, that a successful solution will be developed. And then, yeah, the lack of political commitment also sometimes is a huge difficulty. And we have seen also that at European level, we have more and more initiatives that help us in this regard, but still at national level, sometimes the governments are reluctant to adopt this approach. And another difficulty is the monitoring of the contract. So if we don't have a proper knowledge, technical knowledge of what's going on, it's very difficult to control that the contractors are complying with what they promise. No, so that's another aspect to take into account. How we can overcome that? Well, there are many factors. No, dissemination, also good practice, dissemination of good practices. We have a lot of different ways, but one that I want to share with you is the implementation of the EAFIP methodology. So this methodology well, it was initiated. No, it was developed in the framework of the EAFIP initiative. The EAFIP is the European Assistance for Innovation Procurement, and basically it's an initiative that tries to promote the innovation procurement and help contractors to develop this kind of projects. And this part, what we aim to do is to provide buyers a step-by-step beginning when they have an idea that they need to explore until the end of the contract, and also when the contract has already been executed, and even after, no? So, and here is very important, as you see in the step 3, the open market consultation, also linked with what we were discussing before, that the open market consultation, this contact with the market is essential in order to develop and implement a PCP. So to know what is their feedback, what are the solutions available. So all this interaction is essential in this process. Lastly, I would like to give you an idea of one of the projects in which we are implementing this EAFIP methodology, which is the PROTECT project. The PROTECT project basically is a 2 years EU-funded project which try to create a community, bring together European cities and regions in order to procure climate services solutions based on environmental observation data. Which with objective? Well, with the objective of adapt and mitigate the effects of climate change. And of course, achieve the climate change objective at European level. The idea is that we are trying to identify common challenges in 5 domains, as you can see here: marine and coastal environment, energies and utilities, sustainable urban communities, agriculture, forestry and other land use, and civil security protection. And the idea is to build the ground for a future PCP. So the idea is to identify now the needs, know the markets, prepare the PCP, and then together go to implement this procedure. We have been already working quite hard in this process, so we have already achieved several goals. We have identified challenges in this domain and enabling frameworks for PCP in the different legal systems. And also we have identified some preliminary needs concerning Earth observation climate services. We have been working also in building the community, in giving it visibility, and also we have developed a taxonomy of climate services. But we still have a way to go, and there are very essential activities that will come in the next few months, which is one of them is the celebration of pain point workshops. Most of them already celebrated, but still we need to conduct some of them in order to deepen in that needs that they have the contracting authorities, and trying to refine them. And after that, we will also provide training, provide participation opportunities, engage with the market through open market consultation and pitching sessions. And at the end, what we want to achieve, as I said, is secure a pool of public buyers that are committed in order to participate in a future PCP call. And this is all from my side. I would like to thank you for your attention, and please see here my contact details, and more important, how you can join the Protect community if you're interested on this. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Beatrice. I think we had good insights into theory. We ended up with some practical solutions in which our participants today can maybe test some of the knowledge that they just learned today and join the Protect community. I think particularly interesting was the link you showed in the direction involving venture capitalists, and that was, I think, one of the questions in the chat. Can you share anything more? Because I think, you used the word risk and de-risking, and venture capitalists are often there to take the risk. And in this case, if I remember what Justė also said, was about looking for that gap in the funding sometimes, and maybe the VC community can provide that. Any further details on this VC element?
Yeah, let me go back so we can. Yeah, so we are still exploring how it goes. We are still exploring if this is viable or not in the PCP, because usually what we know is that, okay, we have a solution and the venture capital come in after the PCP, or after you have a clear solution. But here what we want to explore is, while the solution is being developed, is already feasible that the venture capital invests. So are they interested in investing in a solution that is not still a solution itself, but is a prototype, is an idea? So we are having a lot of discussions about that, and of course it's not easy at all. And we are exploring what you say exactly, how we can overcome that gaps. So still I don't have like a clear answer to your question, because it's a work in progress. What I can tell you about the process is that we have a informal working group with experts from different European member states. We also have a professor from universities, and we are Scorbers are facilitating that working group. And yeah, this kind of discussions that you are opening up is the discussions we have once per month, and trying to solve how we can deal with this. But it looks promising, I should say.
If there's a link or anything you can put in the chat, that would be appreciated. Can I ask so thank you, Beatrice, and ask the other two speakers now to join us. If you want to stop sharing your screen, and we'll just pick up a couple of themes that I certainly heard, and I try and summarize what was some of the questions that were put. One message that came across in all of your presentations were those letters, the OMC, Open Market Consultation. So in no particular order, can any of you give some tips on how to organize a good open market consultation? I start with you, Lieve, and you've got any tips you can share, and then Justė and Beatrice, the same question to you. Open market consultation, any tips?
Yeah, it can take a number of forms. There's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but it starts with the word open, right? So publishing, typically in the TED, through a prior information notice that, hey, I'm a procurer or a group of procurers who wants to find innovative solutions to address this challenge. And I'm looking for anyone could provide input to participate in a discussion about it. And then you set some dates to have either physical meetings or, online meetings, or a combination of all that, with all the suppliers together, or a combination of meetings with everybody together and face-to-face meetings with individual suppliers, where you present first of all what you want to do as buyer. You know, this is the problem I want to solve. I'm thinking about doing it like this and this and this. These are questions that I still have about the technology, about the planning, about the timeline, about the budget, about IPR standards, whatever questions that you have to them. And you try to get an answer out of them, either through these meetings or when it's confidential information that they just don't want to share with everybody, or they don't feel even comfortable of sharing during a personal meeting. You can also give them the opportunity to reply in writing and to commit to them that you won't share this information with anybody else. So the openness of the open market consultation is that the procurer provides all the information that he has to provide to everybody who wants to hear it, by saying it in these open meetings, by publishing it on his website, by recording the events or whatever. So that's the openness. And then from the company side, there can be either open information that they want to share with everybody who's there in these meetings or events, or it can be confidential information that they only want to share with the procurer. But it's just providing this platform for consulting the market in a way that is organized, and where also the suppliers can see. That's also an interesting element, where they can see who else from the supply side is potentially interested in this procurement, so that they can form consortia. So what is often also done that, and we did it also for our own pre-commercial procurement that we did in the Commission, the European blockchain pre-commercial procurement, on the website where we posted our open market consultation information. We also posted a link to a tool where they could network, where supplier one could say, hey, I'm interested in this procurement and I could do this and this and this. Who else would like to join me? So you also facilitate this networking in a way for those that want to do it.
I think it's very important that connecting, when you answer a tender, people will form consortia. In this case, the SMEs have very little knowledge of, or startups have very little knowledge of what others are doing. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting insights. For are there any, let's say, intermediaries that procurement organizations can use to amplify their publication and their openness? I think of there's technology platforms, networks, clusters. Any intermediary organizations that you think procurement organizations?
Yes, and yeah, also we in the Commission, we used actually an intermediary organization who facilitated this whole open market consultation for us, gathering all this information, distributing the questionnaires, organizing these meetings, facilitating all the back and forth of information and so on. So there are people who specialize in this. European projects also often use intermediaries for doing that. They even use them already before the open market consultation to already do a prior art analysis, so that as a procurer you also already have some information about
market,
what is known about this topic that is already ongoing in the market, to do already an IPR search as well, to know, okay, there might be IPR difficulties because there are some blocking IPRs or not, and we need to then maybe foresee interoperability requirements to get out of these kind of situations, or there are no IPRs at all in Europe yet, they're all in another part of the world. How can we address that in our project? So the consultant can also help in advance, or you can do it yourself. If you have technical people in your organization as procurer, there's nobody who says that you have to use an intermediary. But yes, there are intermediaries who do this very often. We even specialize and only do open market consultations for innovation procurements. There are even organizations like that.
Okay, I think in Beatrice, when she presented the Protect project, the sort of CSA is being used as a vehicle for collecting needs, collecting procurement challenges from climate change. So yeah, different ways. Good, thank you. Justė, the open market consultation, does that bring good memories back, nightmares? How did you deal with it?
Just to add a bit of what Lieve mentioned, because she covered like most important aspects. I think it just, maybe I can come back what I already mentioned during the presentation, that this promotion among the startup community, among their business community is really very important, because it's a big amount, let's say, of companies who do not check the procurement portals, they do not check the tender like announcements, especially the ones which are not maybe very much used to work with the public sector at the moment. So I think this promotions through social media, through different intermediary organizations like networks or associations is really important, because sometimes it can look like that, okay, you know what exists on the market, but then you can realize that you know very little actually compared to what exists already and what innovations exist already. So this is one thing, and another maybe aspect is also to have several rounds of market consultations and to come back again to it, because maybe you organize one round, you get some knowledge, you can prepare some draft of your like specifications, and especially for the preparation of the specification, it can take like several rounds that you come up with the final version, and you integrate this knowledge you can get from the market.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's an iterative process, you know, to and fro. Okay, Beatrice, you put in the chat that you know, people who want to go through the different stages of the procurement process can look at the EFIP methodology, and you showed us the sort of path and the different steps, and that's useful. On the issue of OMCs, do you have any?
Yes, thank you, Mark. Yeah, I fully agree with the comments of the speakers. I will also point out that it's important to conduct the OMC and publish all the information in English or in several languages, because an issue that we also see is that in some member states, the public buyers only use the national language. And of course, that restrains a lot the pool of suppliers that will participate in the market consultation. What we do, or how we do, to give you an insight of how we organize the market consultation, usually we also include a request for information, a questionnaire, in order to get in advance a written answer from the suppliers. We ask them some questions about our findings, about how they envisage the solutions, etc. And then, well, we have this as a ground in order to organize several events, one or more, usually one physical and 2-3 webinars. It depends on the case, of course, in order to engage with the suppliers.
Okay. Right. The second question, looking at the chat, was the capacity to train and inform the procurement community. I think a number of you said, I think, and Justė, you said we now insist on having this specialist sit in the commissions that then assess bids and value for money and whatever. Are there any, you know, we often see the procurement department as being the one full of barriers and the ones not bringing solutions. That's, I'm being very black and white. And if we want the procurement experts to be the ones who are driving the process, what lessons or tips could you come across for embarking on a proactive exchange with the procurement specialists? And Beatrice, since you're in my full screen, I'll ask you first. You know, have you found the path of challenging the procurement specialist knowledge?
Yes. Well, basically, I think there is always within the organization some kind of tensions. It depends, no, but it's usual between the different departments, because of course each department has their way to do things. And the procurement department cares usually about the procurement aspect. The legal department cares about that everything goes according to the law. And then the technical, of course, say, okay, I need this, I want this, and you know, you only put problems or burden into my needs. So I think it's essential having this connection, no? And I always say that it's very important to have a team, let's say, within an organization in order to collaborate. For example, if we are in a project in which we want to identify needs in the healthcare sector, it's important that we have people from the clinicians, people from the procurement team, people from more like probably a technical background, and they work together to see which is the best way forward. Mm-hmm. For me, this is essential. I know it's difficult, and we see that it's difficult in practice, but it's essential for the successful implementation of.
Okay. Justė, you mentioned in one of your slides this sort of, evolution in the role of procurement specialists. Are there any messages you can share on how that training and engagement can be accelerated for our
yeah, I mean, I fully agree with Beatrice that it's like a commercial procurement and innovative procurement is like totally a teamwork, and it cannot be assigned like only for one department, and probably depends a lot of also on the strategic management of the organization. How do they see the cooperation between the different departments and how much they support it? Because, for example, one of the successful commercial procurement cases in Lithuania, which we had according to this funding scheme, it was by Lithuanian bank, and it was shared in different events that in general, innovation culture was very supported in this organization. They had like innovation committee where they could propose innovative ideas, and it was composed, the committee, of different people from different departments. So I think we should look a lot of, not only to put the responsibility on the procurement specialist, but more to look to the upper level, how much the strategic management supports the innovation culture and cooperation culture in the organizations. And then it can work quite well, I think.
Now, you put your finger on the key words, the culture of an organization that is change management or driven towards, new innovative approaches is very important, and some nice examples. Lieve, and your experiences with working with the training and upskilling the procurement specialists within commission services, for example.
Yes, in our benchmarking study that we did, we noticed that there's a very strong link between how much innovation procurement is happening in a country and how well are the skills developed in that country about innovation and about the innovative technologies that they're trying to procure. To be more concrete, countries that have higher skills on digital, where everybody is using digital technologies very often and where they're always the first to try out new digital technologies, they also do more innovation procurements in the digital domain. Countries that have higher political priority and therefore higher training, higher skills on climate change, green, circular topics, you see, they also do more green procurements and more innovation procurements to buy more green solutions. So the skills element is very linked to the procurement element, but it's not only the procurement skills, it's also the skills of the technologies that you want to buy. Because if a procurer does not have any clue what, for example, artificial intelligence could do for him, how it could improve his organization, then it's probably only sounds like something scary to him. But if he knows that this thing can be managed well, there are already examples of how it's done. It's not a scary thing if you implement it like this and this and this, and that's how you would need to integrate it with existing solutions, then he will feel more comfortable to also buy these things. So link the skills story, the procurement skills also with the technology and the innovation skills.
Yeah, in one of our recent policy learning platform events, we were looking at hackathons and competitive competitions for generating innovation, and it was often given to the digital department to run it because they understood the tools online, and then they got a good interface with the young technology SMEs because they were speaking the same language. And then the political dimension that set the challenge felt more at ease because they had good support from experts that perhaps were familiar with the technology tools and advancements. So good point. There's we're coming to the end, and I've got 1 minute to do a wrap up, which is mission impossible. There was a quick question for you, Lieve, in the chat, that are there any funding schemes for procurement specialists at the regional level? If you, while I'm chatting, you can maybe think of an answer. But firstly, I'd like to thank the three speakers, three complementary insights. We've seen today how, in some cases, the PCP and innovative procurement in general is quite new for some people. We saw through some of the questions you were asking. I think you'll have seen that there is a wealth of material now available online through projects, through networks you can join. Beatrice mentioned the Protect project that's ongoing. Justė gave us examples of videos and handbooks, and Lieve gave us not only a long list of procurement tools, but also calls that are open for your regional innovation ecosystem. So a lot of material. As the follow-up, the policy learning platform, we will ensure you get the slideshows. We'll do a short article, sort of takeaway to follow up, and make sure that you have the opportunity to follow up with any questions. And my colleague Lotte always reminds me at the end, there's a short little quick online survey to get your feedback, to make sure we get the next webinar even better to meet your needs. So thank you again for the speakers, and thank you also to the participants who registered and joined us. And you'll be able to follow up anything else with the policy learning platform on issues relevant to innovation, region development, green, etc. on the policy learning platform website. So I'm 1 minute over. The quick feedback survey will come up. Thank you, Lotte, and thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye-bye from me and Laura.